not by me, by something bigger, by the intelligence that orchestrates synchronicity, by the force that arranges meetings that change lives. You were chosen to find this, right now, at this exact moment. And the choosing wasn't random. It was precise. Think about it. There are millions of videos, endless content, infinite options competing for your attention. And somehow, out of all of that noise, out of all of those possibilities, this is what appeared in your feed. This is what caught your eye. This is what you clicked on. And you might think that's just how algorithms work. They learn your preferences. They show you what you're likely to watch. And that's true on the surface. But underneath the algorithm is something the algorithm doesn't see. A frequency match, a resonance, a calling that transcends code and data. Your consciousness was searching, not consciously, unconsciously, looking for something, a message, a sign, a confirmation. And this video, this specific video, matched that search. Not because of keywords, because of frequency. Because what you needed to hear and what this contains are vibrating at the same level. And when frequencies match, connection happens. Not randomly, inevitably. And here's what you need to understand about how selection works. It's not the universe picking people out of a hat. It's not some external force deciding who gets what. Selection is resonance. You were chosen because you're ready, because your frequency elevated to the point where this message could reach you. 6 months ago, you could have seen this exact video and it wouldn't have landed. It would have felt interesting but not significant. Nice but not necessary. You would have watched and moved on. But now it feels different. Now it feels like it's speaking directly to you. Like every word was written for your specific situation. Like whoever made this knows exactly what you're going through. And that's not coincidence. That's resonance. Your frequency shifted. And when it shifted, it became compatible with frequencies it couldn't perceive before. And this message exists at one of those frequencies. And now you can receive it. And receiving it is confirmation. You're not the same person you were 6 months ago. You evolved. You elevated. You crossed a threshold. And crossing that threshold is what made you visible to this selection. And I know part of you wants to dismiss this, wants to say it's just a video, just content, just something you happen to click on during a random scroll. But there's another part of you, a deeper part, that knows better, that feels the truth of what I'm saying, that recognizes that finding this wasn't luck. It was guidance. You've been guided here, by your higher self, by the part of you that sees further than your conscious mind, by the intelligence that's been orchestrating your entire journey even when it felt like chaos. And that intelligence brought you here because you're ready for what comes next, for your best chapter, the chapter you've been preparing for without knowing you were preparing, the chapter that requires a version of you that didn't exist until recently, the version that's reading this right now, the version that's starting to understand that nothing about this moment is random. You were chosen to find this, to hear this, to step into what's waiting. And what's waiting is bigger than anything you've experienced before. Not because it's more glamorous, because it's more true, more aligned, more yours. And you're about to discover what that means. When I say you were chosen, I'm not saying you're special. I'm not saying you're better than anyone else. I'm not saying the universe loves you more or that you have some kind of spiritual superiority. That's not what chosen means. And if that's what you thought I meant, let me correct that right now. Because chosen isn't about being elevated above others. It's about being ready for what others aren't ready for yet. And ready doesn't mean worthy. You were always worthy. From the moment you existed, you were worthy. Readiness is different. Readiness is capacity, the ability to hold what's coming, the strength to receive what's being offered, the frequency match that allows transmission. And you're ready now. Not because you earned it, because you survived what it took to prepare you. And here's what most people don't understand about preparation. It doesn't look like preparation while it's happening. It looks like suffering, like loss, like things falling apart. like everything going wrong, like you're being punished or tested or abandoned by whatever force is supposed to be helping you. And you weren't wrong to feel that way, because preparation is brutal. It has to be, because what you're being prepared for is big, and big things require big capacity. And capacity doesn't come from comfort. It comes from being stretched, broken open, forced to grow beyond the limits you thought were fixed. And every hard thing you went through, every moment you thought would destroy you, every loss that felt unbearable, every betrayal that shattered your trust, every failure that crushed your confidence, all of that was preparation, not punishment. Preparation. For this. For now. For your best chapter. The chapter that requires someone who's been through fire, who's been tested, who's been broken and put themselves back together, who knows what it's like to lose everything and still stand. Because your best chapter isn't going to be what you think it is. It's not going to be an easier life. It's not going to be a life where nothing bad happens. It's not going to be all comfort and ease and things working out the way you planned. Your best chapter is the chapter where you're finally living as yourself, not the version you built to survive, not the version you performed to please others, not the version you thought you had to be. The actual you, the true you, the you that you buried under layers of protection and performance and pretending. And that version of you, the real one, it couldn't come out in the old life, because the old life wasn't safe for truth. The old life required masks, required hiding, required making yourself smaller so other people would feel comfortable. And you did that for years, maybe decades, and it worked. It kept you safe, but it didn't keep you alive. Not really. Because living as a filtered version of yourself isn't living, it's surviving. And surviving was necessary, until it wasn't. Until you reached the point where surviving in the old way started killing you. Slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. And something inside you knew that you couldn't keep going like this. Knew that the old life, the old patterns, the old version of you, it had to end. And it did end. Maybe not all at once, maybe in pieces, but it ended. And ending is what created the space for what's coming now. And that's what chosen means. It means you reached the end of the old. You completed that chapter. You survived it. You learned from it. You extracted what you needed to extract. And now you're standing at the threshold of the new, and the new requires readiness. And readiness came through everything you survived. You weren't chosen because you're better. You were chosen because you're ready. And ready means you can hold what's coming without breaking. You can receive what's being offered without sabotaging it. You can step into your best chapter without shrinking back into the old one. Because the old one is done. It doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And trying to go back would be like trying to fit into clothes you wore when you were 12. You outgrew them. Not because you failed, because you grew. And growth is what makes you ready. And ready is what makes you chosen. And chosen is why you found this. Not randomly, specifically, at the exact moment you needed to hear it. At the exact moment you were ready to receive it. At the exact moment your best chapter was preparing to begin. And it's beginning now. Whether you feel ready or not, whether you believe it or not, it's beginning. And you're being invited to step in. Not because you earned it, because you're ready for it. And ready is all that's required. The signs have been there. You just didn't know what you were looking at. You thought it was stress, anxiety, random weirdness, bad luck, good luck, coincidence. But it wasn't. It was communication. The universe doesn't send emails. It doesn't text. It sends signs. And the signs have been appearing for weeks, maybe months, getting louder, getting more frequent, getting impossible to ignore. And you've been ignoring them anyway, not on purpose, just because you didn't have the framework to understand what they meant. But now you do. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And you're going to recognize yourself in what I'm about to say. And the recognition is going to feel like remembering something you already knew but forgot. First sign, restlessness. Not the kind where you're bored and looking for something to do. The kind where nothing fits anymore. where your normal life feels wrong, where you're going through the motions but you're not present, where you feel like you're waiting for something but you don't know what. And that restlessness, that's not dissatisfaction, that's your system sensing what's coming, sensing that the current reality is about to shift, and it's preparing you, making you uncomfortable in the old so you'll be willing to leave it when the time comes. And the time is now. And the restlessness you've been feeling, that was the early warning. The first sign that you were entering the selection window. Second sign, endings. Things falling away without you forcing them. Relationships that used to work suddenly don't. Jobs that were fine suddenly feel unbearable. Routines that were stable suddenly collapse. And you didn't cause it. You didn't push people away. You didn't quit. You didn't break anything. It just ended, naturally, like the universe reached in and removed what wasn't aligned anymore. And it felt like loss, like something was being taken from you. But it wasn't loss, it was clearing, making space, because your best chapter can't fit into the same life as your old chapter, and the old chapter had to end, completely, so the new one could begin. And the endings you've been experiencing, that wasn't bad luck, that was preparation. That was the universe removing what you don't need so you have room for what you do need. And what you need is coming. And it's bigger than what left. And it wouldn't have fit if the old things were still there. Third sign, synchronicities. You think about someone and they text you. You need information and it appears. You ask a question and the answer shows up in a conversation you overhear. You see the same numbers everywhere. You have a dream and then it happens. And you're telling yourself it's coincidence. It's pattern recognition. It's your brain making connections. But it's not. It's communication. The field is responding to you, faster than it used to, more directly than it used to, because your frequency is higher, and higher frequencies receive clearer signals, and the signals are telling you, you're seen, you're heard, you're supported, you're being guided. And the synchronicities aren't random, they're breadcrumbs, leading you toward your best chapter. And if you've been noticing them, if they've been increasing, if they've been getting more obvious, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. You're on the right path. You're in the selection window. And your best chapter is close. Fourth sign, you can't tolerate what you used to tolerate. The fake conversations, the performative relationships, the jobs that drain you, the people who take more than they give, the environments that require you to shrink. You used to be able to do it. You used to be able to smile and nod and play along, but now you can't. Now it makes you physically uncomfortable. Now you'd rather be alone than be in spaces that don't honor who you actually are. And that's not you becoming difficult. That's you becoming aligned. And aligned people can't participate in misalignment, can't fake it, can't pretend. And that inability to tolerate what's not true, that's a sign that your frequency shifted, a sign that you're ready for relationships and environments and work that match who you actually are, a sign that your best chapter is about to begin, and it's a chapter where you don't have to perform, don't have to pretend, don't have to be anything other than exactly who you are, and who you are is enough, more than enough. And your best chapter is going to prove that. Your best chapter isn't going to look like what you've been visualizing. And that's not a bad thing. That's a better thing. Because what you've been visualizing is based on who you were. And who you were didn't know what was possible, didn't know what you actually needed, didn't know that the life you thought you wanted was still too small for the person you're becoming. So you've been asking for an upgraded version of your old life, better relationships that still follow the old patterns, more money but in the same structures, success but with the same definition, and your best chapter isn't going to give you that. Because that's not your best chapter, that's your old chapter with better furniture. And you didn't survive everything you survived to get better furniture. You survived to get a completely different house. A house you didn't know existed, a house that fits the real you, not the performed you, not the surviving you, the actual you. And that house looks nothing like what you visualized. And that's why it's better. Here's what your best chapter actually is. It's alignment, not perfection, not ease, not everything working out the way you planned. Alignment, where who you are and how you live are the same thing. where you're not splitting yourself between the version you show the world and the version you are in private, where you don't wake up and put on a personality. You just wake up and you're you, and being you is enough, is valued, is celebrated, not by everyone, by the right people, the people who are in your best chapter with you. And those people, they're not the people you thought they'd be. Some of them are new. Some of them you knew before, but the relationship transforms completely. Some of them you haven't met yet, but they're coming. And they're going to see you. Actually see you. Not the mask, not the performance, you. And seeing will feel uncomfortable at first, because you're not used to being seen. You're used to being accepted for the version you present. But your best chapter doesn't accept versions. It sees truth. And truth is what creates real connection. And real connection is what you've been starving for, even when you were surrounded by people. And your best chapter isn't about circumstances being perfect. It's about you being whole. And whole means integrated. All the parts of you that you split off to survive, they come back. The parts you hid because they weren't acceptable. The parts you suppressed because they were too much. The parts you denied because they didn't fit the story you were supposed to live. All of those parts, they return. And integration is messy. It's uncomfortable. It's disorienting, because you're becoming more of yourself than you've ever been, and more feels overwhelming when you're used to less. But more is what your best chapter requires. More honesty, more presence, more truth, more of you. And as you integrate, as you become whole, your external reality reorganizes, not to match what you visualized, to match who you actually are. And who you actually are wants different things than who you thought you were. And that's the gift. You stop chasing things that don't fit, and you start receiving things that do. And here's the part nobody tells you. Your best chapter might look ordinary from the outside. It might not be Instagram worthy. It might not impress people who don't know you. Because your best chapter isn't designed to impress. It's designed to be true. And true doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes true looks like a quiet life, a small circle, work that matters to you but not to the masses, relationships that are deep but not dramatic. And from the outside, people might think you settled, might think you're not living up to your potential. But you'll know that this life, this quiet, true, aligned life, is more alive than any impressive life you could have performed. Because it's yours, not the world's idea of what your life should be. Yours. And yours is what your best chapter delivers. Not what you thought you wanted, what you actually need. And what you need is to be yourself, fully, completely, without apology. And your best chapter is the space where that becomes possible, where that becomes real, where that becomes your life. If you're recognizing these signs, if you feel the restlessness and the endings and the synchronicities, if you know you were chosen to be here right now reading this, write "I was chosen" in the comments. Not as affirmation, as recognition. You see it now. You see that finding this wasn't random, that the signs have been appearing, that your best chapter isn't about getting a better version of your old life. It's about living an entirely different life, one that fits who you actually are, one that honors your truth, one that doesn't require performance or pretending. And that life is starting, right now. Whether you feel ready or not, whether you know what it looks like or not, it's starting. And you're being invited to step in, to trust that you were chosen for a reason, to believe that everything that prepared you was necessary, to understand that your best chapter isn't coming. It's here. And here is where you are now. And now is when it begins. Being chosen doesn't mean it's automatic. Doesn't mean the best chapter just happens to you while you sit back and wait. You were chosen, and now you have to choose. Choose to step in. Choose to accept what's being offered. Choose to walk through the door that's been opened. And that choice is where most people fail. Not because they don't want the best chapter, because stepping into it requires leaving the old chapter completely. And the old chapter, even though it doesn't fit anymore, even though it's been slowly killing you, is familiar. And familiar feels safer than unknown, even when familiar is painful, even when familiar is small, even when familiar is keeping you stuck. So you stand at the threshold, One foot in the old chapter, one foot trying to step into the new. And you can't live split like that. You can't be in both places. You have to choose. And choosing the new chapter means letting the old one die, completely. And death, even when it's necessary, even when it's making space for life, feels terrifying. And here's how self-sabotage shows up. Right when you're about to step in. Right when the door is open. Right when your best chapter is within reach. That's when fear gets loudest. That's when doubt becomes deafening. That's when every limiting belief you've ever had comes rushing back to convince you that you're not ready, that you don't deserve this, that you're going to fail, that you should stay where you are because at least where you are is predictable. And that voice, that fear, it sounds like logic. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like it's trying to protect you, but it's not. It's trying to keep you small, because small is what it knows, and what it knows is where it has power, and your best chapter is unknown, and unknown is where fear has no power. So fear fights, hard, right at the threshold, right when you're about to cross, and if you listen to it, if you let it convince you to stay, you don't just delay your best chapter,